manners of a pig.
The doctor?
The brat. Turlo.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Fast Return. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Sean, and today we're chatting about Terminus.
Terminus.
Yep, so we're carrying on with our Black Guardian trilogy. Trilogy. And we were bracing ourselves because you mentioned in the last episode that there's like a tonal shift with this one, like it's very dark.
Yeah, I'd heard mixed things about it.
First off, really enjoyed this episode. Like, it kept me gripped from beginning to end. We sat down and we were going to watch one part, and we ended up watching 4 in one sitting, which for me is really good. And I'm going to come right out and say it that I am now fully on board with the Fifth Doctor's era. Like, watching it today, I know. I just get it.
If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, like, I honestly feel bad for you. Like, I cannot explain it. Like, I don't have the vocabulary to sit here and explain. Like, either you get the vibe or you don't get the vibe.
Because he was the only doctor out of all the doctors that I really struggled with. I really, really had a tough time, like, warming to him at all.
Right.
But I think because we've watched so many of his episodes out of order, there's sort of a lot of arcs in his era. So you can put on a random episode and he'll be really grumpy, and you'll think, like, well, I used to think, like, why is he acting like that? And we'll put on another episode and he's still grumpy, and he's grumpy about something else this time, and it's like, But then you watch things more chronologically. I mean, we've not even started from the very beginning, but we've started from like quite a good jumping on point, I think. And there's a lot of like story threads that we've seen begin in the last episode, Mordred Undead, and have carried on into this one. And I've just got the bigger picture. I am really enjoying it. I think Peter Davison's performance in this episode, as well as the last one, but more this one, was outstanding. I think that everyone was outstanding. All the actors, I was fully invested in them. There was not one like dud character where I sort of roll my eyes when he comes on screen, there's not one character so hamming it up too much. There's a couple of hammy moments. We'll get into that. But overall, I thought this was another really, really tight episode. Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was really strong. So for me, I think I wouldn't quite rate it as highly as Mordred, I think, but I found a lot to enjoy in this. And I think the first episode particularly was really, really strong. I think going into it, I was expecting it to be a bit of a dud story because, like I said last time, it has a bit of a reputation for being one of those stories that's a bit like, it's not that popular, it's not really talked about, but for good reason. I think that's the reputation it's got anyway. Now, I thought there was a lot to enjoy in this, and there were threads running through it that I did quite like. But without being too specific, I thought it was good fun. And actually, I'm looking forward to continuing the trilogy with the next serial, which is Enlightenment.
Shall I read out a summary of the plot?
Yeah.
So the Dr. Turlo and Nyssa arrive on the spaceship Terminus, a vast medical facility located in deep space. The station is supposed to be a place of healing, but it's actually a front for a much darker purpose. The crew is struggling to maintain control, and the station is on the brink of collapse due to a deadly radiation leak. Nyssa, who is suffering from a terminal illness, learns that Terminus might hold the key to curing her condition, but things take a dangerous turn when the Doctor and his companions discover that the facility is being run by a ruthless organisation exploiting sick people as a resource. The station is also home to the Leper, a group of outcasts infected with a deadly disease. Meanwhile, Turlo is facing his own moral dilemma as he's being manipulated by the Black Guardian. As tensions rise, the Doctor must navigate both the political intrigue within Terminus and the technical problems of the station to stop a disaster. So there you go. You're going to be really surprised at this. I enjoyed Terminus more than I enjoyed Mordred Undead.
Really?
Even though Mordred had the Brigadier in it, I thought this story was so much more captivating.
Really?
Yeah, and all the subplots with the companions, I found gripping. Like, there wasn't one thing that came on screen I was like, oh, I can't be asked for this.
Do you know, to be fair, I agree. I think they used all the characters really well. Like, there were quite a few threads going through it, but I really enjoyed them. And even like Tegan and Turlo, they were funny together. And Turlo, bless him, he doesn't really get any chance to kill the Doctor in this story. So the Black Guardian's like barking at him for the whole time, terrorising him. And Tegan's not giving him an easy time either, is she? So he has a bit of a crap time in this. But it was really good. I like the way that it used all the characters, and it even introduces side characters that you do care about, and it resolves it all in a really satisfying way, I feel.
I agree with all of that. So going through it, we'll try to go as chronologically as we can, obviously making allowances. I really liked how the first part opens in the TARDIS, and a lot of the first part takes place in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Picks up straight from the last episode, which was great. And the Doctor is decidedly absent for a lot of this as well, these scenes in the TARDIS. And we've got a continuation of Tegan being really suspicious of Turlough.
Don't patronise me, Turlough.
I'm simply relating what I think.
Turning an argument around is something you're very good at.
Listen to yourself. You're so concrete in the way you think. Why can't you just agree to differ?
I think you're dangerous.
I think we should try and be friends.
But having to integrate him into the TARDIS anyway. I loved seeing like more of the TARDIS because you get to see the corridors.
Yep.
And you see Nyssa's bedroom. You see Adric's bedroom, which I'm sure you must have seen before, but I've not watched any episodes, I don't think, with Adric's bedroom in it.
We've not seen it since Earthshock.
Right.
And I was surprised to see it, actually.
And because I've watched so little of the Fifth Doctor's era, I don't think I've even seen that before. So that was really cool to see. Yeah, I just thought it was hilarious because the episode opens on Tegan like really dragging Turlough. She is not.
Yeah, she's not impressed, is she?
No, not impressed at all. She's not suffering fools gladly, is she?
No.
You know, she's happy to tell him that I don't trust you, I don't particularly like you, but here's your bedroom.
And you're weird.
And you're weird.
Well, it's when Turlough tries to like use his charm, doesn't he? And she's just not impressed. She's just like, get in your room.
Yeah.
It used to be Adric's.
And she's very honest. Like, she's very frank with him. She says, you're up to something. I can feel it. And she says to him, I think you're dangerous.
Yeah.
And he's trying to brush it all off. He's like, I think we should try and be friends. And like, she catches him doing something strange in the corridor. He like opens up a roundel on the Black Guardian's instruction and starts messing around with
the
it.
TARDIS.
So he like disables some sort of security feature where he can then go and like get inside the console as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool because like, you know, messing around with the TARDIS is just not something a companion ever does. So the fact that you got this companion who's being like his entire place on the TARDIS is to sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite unique.
Higher power. Yeah, it is super unique setup.
Yeah. I agree. As we watch, if we watch more of the Fifth Doctor's era, you'll see that you do get quite a few TARDIS scenes like this that are like the goings on between the stories. But obviously, it does play a big part in Terminus. For that, I think more or less the whole first half of part one. They're in the TARDIS, aren't they?
Because my favourite scenes in New Who are the scenes where the companions are chilling. You know, Rose getting dressed up for the Unquiet Dead. I know you don't see it, but you've got that interaction in the TARDIS of her having to find the wardrobe and her trying on this dress and her showing the Doctor. I love that. Amy and Rory playing darts in the console room in Series 6. I love it.
Yeah.
There's not enough of it. Yaz in Revolution, one of those, where she's living in the TARDIS console room. She's got the post-it notes everywhere. I love those scenes. They are my favourite. So to know that we get that in the classic Who, especially in this era, is another point to the Fifth Doctor's era. Yeah,
I think it's really interesting how these companions aren't really like getting on very well. I think that's why I'm enjoying this more than the Fifth Doctor's first season, because in the first season, obviously you've got Tegan and Adric bickering a lot, and this is just sort of there. But I think the characters' relationships develop more now, and you can see how attached to each other Tegan and Nyssa are, and Turlough's more, I don't know, feels more engaging somehow when he has his conversations with Tegan compared to Adric. I mean, yeah, I can't believe how much I understand the way Turlough behaves now compared to how I used to perceive him as just being a bit weird. And it's like, yeah, he is a bit weird, but that's the whole point, isn't it? He's got other things happening that the characters aren't privy to, but as the audience, we know.
And I said it in the last episode as well. I already feel myself feeling really sorry for Turlo because the Black Guardian, he's such a malevolent force and he's really messing with Turlo's sanity. You can understand why he's acting weird because like he's in his head. And I wrote a note at the end of the episode, there's a cliffhanger, which we'll go into at the end of the 4th part. And you can just see Turlo losing grip on reality more and more as the Black Guardian becomes more and more forceful with his intentions. So
yeah,
you get it.
I think in the last one, you sort of got the impression that Turlo didn't really care. Like he'd do whatever he had to get what he wanted, which was his freedom. But now you start to see that he doesn't really want to do it. Like his heart's not really in it. And every chance he gets, it seems like he's trying to get away from the Black Guardian rather than kill the Doctor, do you know? Apart from at the very start.
And I think as well, the logical thing would be you tell the Doctor what's happening, but you can tell he's sort of like fighting it on the inside. And the most he could get out in this episode was he said to Tegan, would you be able to kill someone? And she brushes it off as another weird Turloism. But it was like, his consciousness trying to get out, I think. He's not a killer, obviously.
No, obviously.
Especially in the last episode, he was so jovial and like didn't have a care. Sometimes I think he was sort of going along with it for the ride. He's so bored in his life.
Well, I think it was convenient for him, wasn't it? The Black Guardian offered him something, but now it's like he seems to be more tortured by it than anything else. I mean, in this story, he literally doesn't get any chance to kill the Doctor. He spends the whole story separated from him.
He's sort of giving Mr. Magpie when the Wire has control of Mr. Magpie, and it's like a fire in their head, and it just grows and grows. And I can see that this is getting worse.
Yeah,
you know, for Turlo. So I do feel sorry for him, even though he's still annoying,
Rat.
and he's still very strange. But I do get it, do you know?
Yeah, definitely.
We get a really lovely callback to Adric in this episode, where Tegan gives Turlo what must be the only bedroom available because she wouldn't give it to him. She didn't have to. But Turlo's moving into Adric's old bedroom and his sort of theme motif plays as well.
Looks like a kid's room.
Was Adrix?
Who?
Yeah, from Earthshock.
It's obviously very hard for Tegan. So that's sad. Not that Turlo
and then
is very sympathetic.
Turlo's just like, let's get rid of it all.
Yeah. Oh, it's a kid's bedroom.
Yeah.
I liked seeing Tegan drop Turlo off and then immediately dart to Nyssa's bedroom to have a little queen out sesh, little bitch sesh about Turlo.
Yeah.
I live for those scenes, especially now. I mean, little did we know.
I know.
That was the last queen out.
Sad, isn't it?
It is sad.
It is sad she's gone. I didn't really realise that was her leaving story, but I've never really thought about it when Nyssa leaves. But I guess, it hadn't really dawned on me. She has a bit of a miserable time, doesn't she, for her last journey? What other Doctor Who companion can say, oh yeah, I got infected when I was on a leper colony and spent the last story in like this dirty like chamber room with all these people that are like dying.
It is bleak, but I think this one has a happy ending, to be honest.
Yeah, it does.
We'll
it's
get
got a
into
good
that.
sense of good and evil and justice at the end.
Yeah, that was another comment I was going to make, that this episode was structured really well, especially in those first 2 parts. Before we get to that, so the Black Guardian is trying to guide Turlo on how to sabotage the TARDIS. And whatever Turlo did, it caused the TARDIS to start breaking up and latch on to the nearest spaceship. And it creates like a doorway in Nyssa's room. The doorway came out.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the only times when I thought, okay, this is a bit confusing. But like when there's this kind of glowing effect in Nyssa's room, it's kind of implying that like she needs to evacuate quickly or else it's going to be dangerous. And the Doctor says like, Nyssa, go through that door. You must go through it or else you'll die in this light that's happening when the TARDIS breaks apart. But you don't really get that sense of danger from the effect they've put on. It feels more like she could go through this glowing doorway if she wanted to, but she doesn't need to. Like, it doesn't quite feel urgent enough to me, that effect. But I mean, that's just like an effects issue, isn't it? It's one of those things they can't do anything about.
Limitations at the time.
For me, it's quite rare in Classic Who, but I did think in this instance, I was a little bit like, could you not just stay there?
I got what it was trying to do. It was like the TARDIS was breaking up and the rooms were literally disintegrating around them. But with the limitations of special effects at the time, all they could muster was like a pixelation effect.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
And poor Nyssa just stood there like screaming, not knowing what to do. But you can imagine, like, with new effects, how cool that idea could have been.
Yeah.
Like the room literally disintegrating, and the only way out for Nyssa would be through this random doorway that's appeared. Like, I get that part, but I don't know why Nyssa had to run away through this spaceship.
But I agree, though. It almost felt like she'd need to get out through the doorway, and then once she's in the doorway, she needs to keep going so that the effect thing doesn't catch up to her. But obviously, the Doctor managed to stabilise it, and then the danger was gone.
Can we talk about the aesthetic of the spaceship?
Yeah.
I thought was so
I'd love to.
Cool. Like, even the skull design on the doors, I felt so uneasy during the entirety of the first part, because it's very much like a mystery in that first part.
Yeah.
There's this danger, they all find themselves on this ship and they're exploring and something's awry, isn't it? I know you mentioned the lighting. It was very brightly lit.
That is, I think, the only issue with part one, really.
And I completely agree with you. At one point, I wrote down how many sets I was spotting. So they built sets for... So there were corridors in this ship that they built. The control room, they built entire systems of vents for Turlo and Tegan to crawl around in.
Yeah.
They built sort of like an elevator that leads into a warehouse, a locker room for the knights, a room where these engines are, like spouting radiation.
Yeah.
Corridors for, what was it called? The Forbidden Place?
Yeah, the Forbidden Zone.
The Forbidden Zone. I did feel like towards the end, like the sets for the entrance to the Forbidden Zone, they ended up running out of whatever and started using curtains, which was slightly disappointing. But a bit of lighting would have hidden that.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. So both of us thought the sets were amazing. And I actually, the only visual issue with this story really that did it great a bit was the lighting, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But this story, believe it or not, was absolutely riddled with production issues and sets that were misbuilt. And they had like production errors and things like that going on behind the scenes that really would have, in theory, they should have like marred the visuals of the story. And I think that might be a bit of what you're talking about. That might be part of the reason why. But it doesn't really bother me. Like, I think by that point, we've seen so many cool sets. It's like, okay, we get the world. The only thing is that I found a bit confusing in the middle stages. I wasn't really sure if we were on Terminus or if we were in like the vessel, the other ship. And I was a bit confused as to where we actually were on occasion, but I kind of worked it out by the end.
I agree with that because they like sort of implicitly showed Nyssa being taken off the ship down into an elevator, and then they were in Terminus. And it would have been nice to have seen the Doctor and co do that as well when they were entering Terminus. And they probably did film it, and it was probably cut, but it would have been great to differentiate. Even in the design, maybe Terminus could have been designed very differently. It was all very dark and black and grey, wasn't it? But
I guess that's why the initial ship is so well lit to contrast more with that. But yeah, it's just staying on part one. What I really like about this Doctor episode is that it's like the TARDIS, as always, is like this safe haven. And then they get off the TARDIS and go into like a set or a jungle or whatever, where they meet the population or meet other characters. But in this episode, they get onto a spaceship and it's absolutely abandoned. And unlike Mordrin, or the classic episodes, it isn't like a generic freighter. There's just like this gloomy atmosphere and these skulls on the walls and all these doorways with this image plastered everywhere. And it's like, you think to yourself, well, it's obviously not like a passenger liner or anything like that. It's like clearly something more sinister. And it is like a build-up, isn't it, for the whole of part one. And the Doctor makes a comment at some point that it's like an old... I think he says something like it's obviously some sort of old liner or like a freighter or something. And it's just like, oh, you know, it's creepy, isn't it? It's sinister. And the only thing that lets it down is the lighting, because it would have been so easy just to tone it down a little bit. You have close-up shots of Peter Davison like walking around the set, and his shadow is casted so aggressively on the wall behind him. It's just like, why didn't they just turn it down a little bit? Because it undermines things like when Tegan's against that door and the door opens and there's all these like moans and like these bandaged kind of bruised hands reaching out. The idea of that is so scary, but it's lit like, I don't know, they're on a stage.
Yeah.
They're on a theatre stage, you know? So that did bug me a little bit. But I really enjoyed the setup and the environment of part one and the atmosphere of part one.
Yeah, I think they nailed that. They definitely nailed it. And
the other thing that felt a bit confusing was when that war gets destroyed and the two like campus-looking pirates ever sort of stride out, don't they?
Is that what they were, pirates?
Yeah, kind of. Well, they were there to steal cargo, weren't they?
Yeah, well, they were serving.
They were serving, but, you know, white capes and like go-go boots and like spandex tights is like, oh.
Barbarella, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
yeah.
I was living for it. Living for it. There was a gorgeous model shot when they're docking. There's a lovely, lovely model shot of the main spaceship and then their ship, which is really funny because you don't see that ship again. Their ship, you don't see the inside of it and you don't see the outside of it again because it legs it.
Yeah.
They get abandoned for some reason. So I really liked how this episode splits up the characters. It's a really lovely piece for Tegan and Turlo, and it's a lovely piece for Nyssa and the Doctor, who are sort of separate and then they're together and then they're separate again. And I like that. I think the way that all the characters moved around the board, like even Tegan and Turlo, they can't stand each other, but clearly they wrote this episode because they knew that these two characters were going to continue to spend more time with each other after this serial.
Yeah.
And it really allowed for some development within the two of them, and it was quite funny. It was entertaining to watch.
We haven't got time. Come on.
So, as you say, I wrote in my notes, Barbarella and co invade the ship. And I said there were great costumes. Like you say, these capes, like white leather spacesuits, if you can call them that.
I mean,
whatever. I mean, they got.
I don't know what I'd call them, to be fair.
Yeah.
They look like glam rockers.
And these like fish tanks on their heads as well. It looked great. I loved it. I really,
the
really
helmets looked ridiculous. Why would you make a space helmet any bigger than it needed to be?
I know.
The space helmets are like big enough to fit two heads inside.
Exactly. They whipped them off quick because you know you were going to bump your head in that. They're called Kari and Olvir.
Right.
So they say that they're there to seek cargo, hopefully a hairbrush with that wig. Like you say, they're just there to ransack spaceships that they think are deserted.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about this. I suspect whoever it was that sent them to get their hydromel, you know, that green liquid.
Yes, the substance.
Because that's the only thing of value, really, in this, like, in the setting for this story. They were right about that because it is stored on that ship, isn't it? It's in the control room. So they were close to the cargo, but obviously that's when they met the Doctor and Tegan, so they got a bit distracted. Sorry, the Doctor and Nyssa. But the people that sent them there were correct. But then when it became evident that they were in danger, they fled, didn't they? And left them there.
The Doctor eventually catches up to Nyssa, who has found the world's best hiding place. I have no idea how the Doctor managed to find her.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's like he had X-ray vision.
Yeah, incredible.
Nyssa?
Doctor, where are we?
I think it's some sort of old passenger liner.
You wouldn't want to play hide and seek with her because you'd never ever find her.
He'd be lost forever.
Yeah. There's a really cool sequence where Carrie and Olver, they take the Doctor and Nyssa hostage in the control room of this ship, and something gets triggered and the spaceship locks down. And the windows, these shutters just like slam shut. I thought that was really exciting, like really cool. Because that's when you're like, oh God, they're locked in this ship. Something bad's happening and they're stuck.
Yeah.
Like the whole atmosphere. Honestly, this story had me so gripped.
Yeah.
It's such a classic adventure. And I'm surprised that people don't talk about this one. I'd love to know why people don't talk about this serial.
Yeah, so the guy who wrote this is the same guy that wrote Warrior's Gate, which is the Romana one where she leaves and it has that big kind of stone opening in that white void with the lion guy. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, I remember that, yeah.
And that also had like underlying imagery of like knights and armor and fighting and that kind of stuff. But he wrote this story as well, and he thinks this is the better of the two stories. And I agree.
Warrior's Gate and this story, no, they're not linked.
No.
I agree. I think they did such a great job. And to hear that the production was marred with problems makes it even more impressive, because I did not pick up on that at all.
I agree. Yeah.
Like,
people talk about stories like Underworld and say that it was marred with issues. That's why it's shit. This was marred with issues too. And this actually is good, because I think both Underworld and Warrior's Gate, I find them both to be quite overrated. And this is actually good. So people should watch Terminus, even if it is a bit heavy going.
Definitely.
Watching it in one go. The sets are the biggest I've ever seen in 80s Who.
Yeah, and I compare it to like the Fourth Doctor's era, especially some of the later ones we watched, like the Sunmakers. One of the sets was one wall with some tape on it.
Not that the Sunmakers is one of the worst, but the sets are awful.
Yeah, we enjoyed the Sunmakers, but the sets are not good for the most part.
There's that set, isn't there? It's like a single bit of beige wall with like a hole in it that looks like a toilet seat and a red like tape X.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know.
What's going on there?
It feels like the show is really refreshed. Is this Davison's second series?
Yeah.
Yeah. The show feels so like, I don't know, invigorated.
Because people often say that it felt invigorated in his first season. And some people say it felt invigorated in Tom Baker's first 80s season, but I've never really thought that. I've always thought it felt quite tired, the first 80s season. But yeah, I can see why in this era it was successful, because it was successful in this era. And the sets and things are fantastic.
Yeah, so the ship locks down and Tegan and Turlough follow the Doctor and Nyssa despite being told to stay on the TARDIS. And the door shuts. I think the Black Guardian's causing his usual chaos.
Right.
And so they're stuck on the ship as well. And the access to the TARDIS is gone, isn't it? And Tegan manages to budge open one of the skull doors, and all of a sudden all these like decrepit, gross hands come out of the door and try and grab her, don't they?
Yeah.
And Turlough manages to get the door shut again. And that's when the build-up to the end of the episode starts, where all the doors open and all these patients come like staggering out of all these different doors.
Well, first of all, like an alarm goes off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then all the doors start to open at once, and you see, rooms and rooms of doors, and all these like hooded, kind of scarred and bruised people sort of shuffle out moaning. And also the image of all these people that are obviously in need of assistance or help on this ship where they seem to have been abandoned or like segregated. And then one of the pirates recognises the ship, don't they? And then that's that infamous cliffhanger.
This is Terminus, where all the Lazzers come to die. We're on a leper ship. We're all going to die.
We're all going to die.
And we have a close-up of the Fifth Doctor being like, oh my God.
For good measure, sprinkling a good old zoom in at the end of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Over putting in more ham than the deli counter at Sainsbury's.
I think it does undermine it a little bit, because the idea of it's quite scary. And obviously quite a kind of, I don't know, is it controversial?
Why is it controversial?
Because leprosy is like a real thing, isn't it? Well, it was.
Yeah,
it still is, I think.
Tell if they were using the word leprosy as like a nickname, but really, I wrote that it was space leprosy. It wasn't actually leprosy.
Yeah. No, it's more like it's
a futuristic disease that's adopted the name.
But I thought, because I thought that Lazar is used to describe someone who's had leprosy. I feel like it must be, but I don't know if it still is. But I feel like it is in the real world. It was used to describe people with leprosy. But I don't know I think I've heard that somewhere. But anyway.
Yeah, I just thought it was an analogy, because there was a lot of parallels between what they were doing with these infected people and what humanity did with, people who had leprosy back in.
Right. Yeah, I see. Fair enough. Well, yeah. So the cliffhanger is a bit of a hammy one, but it doesn't take the cake from the hammiest one of the Fifth Doctor's era, which is, Sean, if you've seen it before, from Kinder, when that guy has that gun and is like, "You forget, Doctor, I have the power of life and death over all of you."
You forget, I'm now in command. I have the power of life and death over all of you.
Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
That's the worst one by a country mile. And this is hammy, but it doesn't come close.
There are YouTube compilations of the hammiest Doctor Who cliffhangers. I try not to watch them because I haven't seen all the episodes, but I do love sneaking a couple of minutes because, my God, especially in like the third Doctor eras, probably the worst, as well as the fifth Doctor's era. And maybe 60, maybe 7 60 as well. I don't know.
60 was screwed over because all the cliffhangers are just Colin Baker's face. Yeah. And it's like, why would you... And actually, to be fair, they did that with Sylvester a lot as well, where they had a threatening image and they cut to the Doctor's face and it's like, oh. But
yeah, so I think it's part of the ritual, isn't it? Every Doctor has to have a hammy cliffhanger somewhere.
I suppose. So, but yeah, like, it would have been more effective if it was the fifth Doctor, like, whispering under his breath, "We're on a whatever ship," you know?
Definitely.
But yeah.
So part 2 opens up with something which also could have been the cliffhanger, which would probably have been a better cliffhanger. And it opens up with Nyssa's got space leprosy.
Yeah.
And I wrote, "Pop a space paracetamol and gets a bed, gal." Bless her.
I'm not sure that would have helped her.
It would have. What did I write?
She takes her skirt off.
Not yet. Hold your horses.
I'm sorry.
The Doctor asks Olvir, you know, what's going on? Why are all these people with space leprosy being kept on this spaceship and abandoned and things like that? And Olvir says it's a commercial company that runs Terminus and they don't care about anything apart from their profit. And I wrote, "We love a capitalism is bad" episode. It was giving like Oxygen.
I was quite surprised, how overt it was.
Yeah, it's
People
great.
say that Doctor Who's only political now, and it's like, this is very overt. I'm sorry, but this is extremely capitalism is bad.
Yeah, probably one of the most I've seen in Classic Who so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tegan and Turlough, they're hiding in the vents, and there's some really cool sequences where they're like hiding and looking up, and they can see these gold knights come storming.
Yeah, they appeared for the first time.
Again, the costume department, they were on roids for this episode.
Yeah. The knights are funny though, aren't they? Because those costumes don't seem like the easiest thing to wear for like fighting. But then obviously you learn that they're not really fighting anybody. They're actually more like protective hazmat suits in a way.
And they're chaperones, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. So it's like they don't really need to be able to fight in them. So if they're bulky, then it's kind of okay.
I wonder why Nyssa came down with space leprosy so much quicker than everyone else, because no one else showed any symptoms.
I mean, she's on there slightly longer than everyone else, isn't she?
Yeah.
But not by much.
So she becomes more ill quite quickly in this part, and she says she's overheating, and she starts whipping off her clothes.
Yeah, skirt comes off.
Yeah, why? What's happening there?
So obviously, in the script, there is a line that references it where she feels like she's suffocating.
Yeah.
Which takes it off, which is okay. Apparently, there's a bit of a discrepancy here where there's a story that Sarah Sutton did it to say like thanks to her male fans. So she did it as like a goodbye gesture sort of thing, so they remembered her.
What, stripping off?
Huh?
Stripping off?
That's one theory. But apparently it's outlined in the script. So it's like, okay. The other thing is that one of the interviewers on the DVD box sets mentioned that to Sarah Sutton, and she was like, "No, I don't know what that is about. I wish that I stood up to it at the time."
Oh, that's sad.
So it's like, what's the truth here?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Her costume did become quite skimpy in parts in this serial.
Yeah.
And if she didn't want to do that, that's really sad. To be fair, when she gets captured, she gets put into like a burlap sack. So
she does, yeah.
Yeah. So that was good. But then she gets in, back into the skimpo outfit again not long after that.
And then she gets thrown into some shackles.
Yeah. Nyssa doesn't have a very good time in this serial, does she?
She has a miserable time. If it was a new episode, the companion would leave because they were so miserable. Well, actually, Tegan does that, doesn't she, in the next season?
Yeah. But there's a scene where Nyssa gets taken by the Knights because she's so visibly ill and unwell. They take her into Terminus, don't they? And there's a really cool shot of her in the elevator and a model shot. that they built all these floors and they show the camera sort of panning down through the floors. I thought that was a really cool touch. I loved it when Nyssa shouts, "What is this horrendous place?"
Yeah, to be fair, so that's when she's going down the lift. And that reminded me of New Earth again, because you've got all these like gantries and walkways that just go on forever. And that's when she says it. And it reminded me of the room with the patients in New Earth.
With all the green cubicles. All
Exactly.
The green, pods. Yeah, I agree. We meet like a head knight. And I noted that he had a little character options figurine on his head. I wrote, "Never lose your figures again."
A character options figurine?
Yeah, it was like a little action figure on his helmet.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show you it later. And then the Gar model's in.
Yeah, he does.
Bless.
So the Garm costume was notoriously difficult for the actor, even more so than a lot of other Doctor Who monsters. And the poor guy inside it fainted a few times while they were filming.
What, from overheating?
Exhaustion, yeah.
Bloody hell. I mean, yeah, that's not good.
No.
It did look a bit unwieldy, to be fair. It was a good costume.
Yeah.
It just looked a bit unwieldy. I always thought, when I saw pictures of the Garm before I watched this episode, that he was going to be the baddie.
Yeah, so did I.
I was waiting and waiting for him to turn evil, and he never did. Good boy from the beginning to end.
Yeah, he was, isn't he? He's a good dog.
He's a good boy. Just want to give him a pat.
Yeah, exactly. So he was supposed to be more sinister, I guess, in keeping with the rest of the theme of the story. He was supposed to be kept largely to the shadows. I get why they did that, because the idea of like the red eyes is quite creepy. There's like one shot in part 4 when he's in shadow at first, and it looks quite good. And then he sort of waddles out, and it's like, apparently the either the costume designer or the writer was surprised when he found out they decided to show him in full.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Again, it's a lighting thing, isn't it? The sets were lit so brightly that there was no shadow to put him in. But I agree, like it would have been great to have seen a shot of him in the shadows with just his eyes piercing.
Yeah.
I think the whole crux of it is you're not meant to trust the Garm. But then in part 4, you find out that he is actually helping everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like rumors, the characters tell the Doctor that the Garm's meant to help people, but you never meet them when they're healed. It's because they get taken away and things. But the Garm he is helping people. The cure that he's delivering isn't completely safe because
it doesn't always work.
And then Nyssa says in a few years, because it's a blast of radiation, you'll get other symptoms. And the Garm is so intelligent that it would have refined the cure, but it wasn't able to because it didn't have free will. It was being controlled by the company.
Exactly. Yeah.
See, I was very on top of this episode. I knew what was going on.
I do like that moment when he saves the Doctor and co in part 4, and then the Doctor's able to do a really heroic thing and save him in return. Like, that wouldn't have happened had the Doctor not have been there, and that felt like a really heroic moment for the 5th Doctor doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the Garm did what he had to do to save everyone, and only he could have done that. And the Doctor returned the favour by correcting the problem he'd been facing, presumably for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
There's a really nice redemption arc for the Garm, for the good boy.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that, God, poor Kari. It looks like they applied her makeup with a mop. They really beat that blusher on her.
She does look glam, though.
She does, yeah. We have the cliffhanger, which is the Doctor getting strangled by a knight.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote, why was he so hostile to them? But it's because the knights are trained to deal with sick patients. So when they're presented with somebody that isn't ill, they want to kill them, I think. I don't know.
He's just like, he tries to strangle Kari. And then he says to the Doctor, no, it's your turn, but I'm going to kill you. It's like, oh.
There's your next bit of
pleasant.
ham.
Yeah.
Cha-ching.
But yeah, but I guess it's because the only people that would be there, if they're not patients, they would be pirates, wouldn't they?
That's true.
When the head knight finds out about the Doctor and Kari, he assumes immediately that they're like saboteurs or pirates.
Yeah, but you should check.
Well, yeah, before you murder someone.
Oh, God. I thought that Kari was such a great companion in this episode because she really is the Doctor's companion.
Yeah.
Not Nyssa's got her own stuff going on. Tegan and Turlo the same. And the Doctor has got Kari as his companion, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they handle all the characters really well. And I suppose you could say, why didn't they give that role to Tegan or whatever? But like, she needs to be able to use guns and defend herself and stuff. And plus, the stuff with Tegan and Turlo is important, like character development, because obviously they're going to be together from now on without Nyssa to sort of even the playing field. And I'm actually keen to see how that progresses. But it's nice because it's like, now Tegan knows more about Turlo, do you know?
I would not have been mad if Kari became like a companion. She's a companion that never was, like Linda with a Y and many others after her.
Yeah, they had a habit of pairing the Fifth Doctor with characters that weren't companions, but would have been quite good companions.
Yeah, she was great. Definitely a high point of the episode.
Yeah.
It made me laugh because when the Doctor's getting strangled, Kari picks up the gun and she doesn't have a direct shot. And rather than, just try and shoot, she calculates the precise angle and trajectory of the beam reflecting off of the metal instead.
Yeah.
It felt like a much more convoluted way of shooting the knight.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But it worked.
It worked. We can't say fairer than that.
She blasted him in the head.
Yeah, she did. And then we get Burlap sack Nyssa. I wrote, this is the most shocking part of the episode so far, is this costume that they've put her in.
Yeah, they sort of just throw her into one of the rooms with all the sufferers, don't they?
Yeah. And she gets chatting to a couple of them, but they don't really have much to do after that. They don't really...
Yeah.
They're not able to sort of decide their own fate. Like the patients in New Earth are very much integral to the plot and the resolution.
Yeah.
These guys, they get sidelined and everything is resolved around them, and they get a happy ending, to be fair. But yeah, because they've got something to say in these scenes, and that it was interesting. But anyway,
yeah, well, it's that thing, isn't it, in Classic Who, where the Doctor's always in a more privileged position than the people that he's saving, isn't he? And the sufferers in this are very much like the nameless kind of masses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nyssa speaks to a couple of them. And when Nyssa speaks to the Knights at first, they're surprised that here's one that speaks. So presumably this virus or whatever it is, it saps kind of your ability to talk or have conversations with people. Because a lot of them aren't talking, are they? They're just sort of moaning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the Knights are surprised when Nyssa talks to them.
Yeah.
So there must just not be very many of them that can speak.
There's various stages of the disease, isn't there?
Yeah.
And they comment on Nyssa. She gets chosen first because she's much stronger, so she's more likely to survive the treatment. So we reach the cliffhanger of part 3. Turlo's trying to recreate the door they used to get here so they can get back to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Tegan still can't stand him, which is hilarious. And Turlo inadvertently fucks everything up, as usual. The Doctor works out the mystery behind Terminus, and the Terminus, the ship, has the ability to time travel, which is cool. And there's a really lovely parallel between the TARDIS set and this set. I don't know if you noticed this, in the console, the Black Guardian asks Turlo to grab something out of the console, and it's called the time whatever, blah, blah, blah device.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like a red tube. And they'd mirrored that in the Terminus set on the control panel.
Yes, I noticed
there was
that.
a red tube.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's its time traveling capability. That's what they use, or part of it.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And it's it comes full circle because that's why the TARDIS latched onto Terminus or near it, because it detected another craft that could time travel.
Yeah.
So perhaps when the console room, it realised it was breaking apart because of what the Black Guardian was doing. It brought the Doctor to another time-travelling device or something. I don't know. That's what I got out of that anyway.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, the whole crux of this story is that Terminus is a gigantic kind of ancient time-travelling vessel. In the past, one of the engines exploded, which is what is said to have caused the Big Bang, before it jumped forward again in time. And the big threat at the end of part 3 is that Turlo's meddling is going to cause the second engine to explode. So the threat is that the engine's going to explode, and where one engine caused the creation of the universe, this one is thought to end it.
A great cliffhanger.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Big Bang was caused by technology going wrong. I do think they've already provided other explanations for the Big Bang in classic Who, and I'm fairly sure one of them was in the Fifth Doctor's era.
A bit of a conflicting plot device, isn't it?
Yeah.
With other stories or canon before it and after it.
Yeah. But I don't really mind it in this story for some reason.
The pilot, because they said he's a creature that's like really strong, you were like, so it's the pilot, and then the Garm is his little pet.
Yeah, it's his dog.
It's his dog.
His doggy.
An advanced version of a dog.
Yeah.
But he's no less of a good boy.
Yeah. Also, if the Garm's kind of patients never return, why do the Knights send people to the Garm?
The Doctor says at the end, there's another ship that picks up the cured patients.
Oh.
And that they'll have to liaise with them as well.
Right, okay.
I picked up on that, yeah.
Fair enough.
So part 4 kicks off. The ship is going to jettison its second payload of unstable fuel, destroying the entire universe. What did you think of the conclusion?
I thought it was really good. I liked that they needed to get the Garm to work with them. This kind of character that till now has been a bit grey area. It's been a bit morally grey. But then it turns out it's actually a good guy, and it's only his kind of strength can stop the lever from jettisoning the fuel, which is controlled itself by a computer. So the Garm stops the physical aspect of it while the Doctor pulls out the correct cables, and then that disables the computer permanently. But that means that Terminus then is no longer a threat, and things kind of fall into place, don't they, throughout the fourth episode that lead Nyssa to where she needs to be.
So Nyssa's cured, but she realises that the cure needs to be refined, and she decides she would be the right person to do that. And the Doctor quite easily convinces the Knights that they don't need the company. They can run things self-sufficiently from here, turn this into a place of good and not a place for capitalism to thrive. I really loved all the threads being tied up. Everything was very tidy.
Yep.
Nothing was sort of forgotten. I was slightly worried when the Garm stops the second payload of fuel from being jettisoned, that he asked the Doctor to destroy the device that was controlling him.
Have I served you well?
Indeed you have.
Do something for me. Destroy the box. Set me free.
Rest. You've earned it.
I was worried that he was going to turn evil, but he didn't. He was a good boy. And I was worried as well that the head knight, he was going to crop up and fuck everything up as like a second wind, but he got defeated quite quickly, which was good as well.
Yeah.
And everything wraps up in a neat little bow. And they decide that they can turn Terminus into a proper hospital that actually helps and cures everyone. And everything's happy. And Nyssa's going to lead the entire thing.
Yeah, because she can synthesize the chemical that the hydromel that the Knights needed to survive and to stave off the disease long enough to be able to actually help people.
I couldn't understand that because I thought that they were using that substance, which actually did look like the substance from the film as well.
Yeah. And
I thought they were using that because there was residual radiation making them sick, and that would stave off the side effects of that. So they'd obviously undone the radiation leakage because they'd disabled all of the engines. So Terminus would never move again, but it should stop leaking radiation. I didn't think they'd need to use that anymore, but I don't know. Maybe
they say a few times, don't they, that the Knights, which are called the Veneer, are slave labour by the corporation. So the only reason why they work there is because they're slaves, and they're kept alive by that hydromel. So I think what that might do is it stops the effects of either the disease or the radiation from killing the Knights, which is why they're all quite pale and quite gaunt.
Yeah.
Because they're all sort of, their health's not very good either. Do you know?
It does regenerate them because the Knight with the moustache
Yeah, the weakened one.
Yeah,
with the
he
burnt
was
like face.
very ill, especially from the radiation.
Yeah.
But a dose of that substance, he's back to his old self, isn't he?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's all wrapped up, and it was really funny when the doctor says, "It'll be good to see the TARDIS again," and this is like Antigon.
It'll be good to see the TARDIS again.
Antigon.
Yes, well, it'll be nice to know she's safe. Tegan!
Doctor,
What are you doing?
I was trying to reach you. Tolo went back to the TARDIS on his own.
I told you not to follow me.
Doctor, say you're pleased to see her.
Yes, well, I'm pleased to see her, but she shouldn't have followed us.
You don't understand.
Yes, well, we'll talk about it later. Valgard.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Tegan, shit, she's talking about you. It was great. I don't
And then
think
we have
the
Mrs. Farewell.
we do, but why? What is the doctor's problem with Tegan? Do we know why?
She's always like a bit of a reluctant traveller, isn't she?
But she's not reluctant now. This is after Amsterdam.
Yeah, but
wants
she
to be
came.
there.
Well, she decided to come back to the Doctor. Has her second traumatic experience with the Mara, where it possesses her. Tries to kill everyone, and then they have Mordred undead, and that wasn't really a walk in the park for her either, was it?
And this one, because she was being gassed in the vents.
Yeah, so she's not had a very nice time.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But yeah, Nissa's goodbye. And Nyssa, the doctor puts his hand out to Nyssa, and she pulls him in and gives him a massive kiss on the cheek, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
And she was all right saying goodbye to him, but oh my God, when she turns around and says goodbye to Tegan, she's in bits.
Also, I like that she tells Tegan first. That's the first time they tell someone that isn't the Doctor that they were leaving. She tells Tegan, and there's a bit of a hubbub, isn't there?
Yeah.
While the Doctor's talking about something else, and then Tegan's like, Doctor, tell her no. And then Nyssa tells the Doctor she's leaving. Apparently when Sarah Sutton hugged Janet Fielding, those were actually real tears.
Really? And did Sarah Sutton want to leave? She'd had enough?
No, apparently not.
No, you're joking.
No. Well, actually, that's conflicting as well. So there are quotes where she says she was told by JNT that they'd done all they could do with her character. And supposedly she said, I can sort of see what they were meant by that. But then she's also been cited as not wanting to leave. So who knows?
Our favourite queer Doctor Who couple has been split up.
Yeah, it's sad.
And even I shed a tear when she hugs Tegan and she says, like you, I'm indestructible. I was like,
Yeah. That's not really nicely done, to be fair. Really nicely done.
And you're a very brave person. I wish you every luck.
She'll die here. Not easily, Tegan. Like you, I'm indestructible.
To be fair, though, it didn't feel like a weird time for her to jump off. Like,
no.
This is such a beautiful Nyssa exit that she wants to stay, use her intelligence to help everyone. And also the door is very much open for her return. I mean, she's left on a time-traveling spaceship that can't move, but she's super intelligent from the future as well. She could get that ship up and running, or elements of it. So I'd love to know how she comes back into it in Big Finish Land, because it'd be quite easy to write her back in.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Would have been nice to have seen her in power, to be honest, but, you know, we move.
Well.
So we lose Nyssa, and we're left with Turlo.
Yeah. And Turlo, back in the TARDIS,
Passed
gets
out on the
absolutely
floor.
tormented by the Black Guardian. He's like, leave me alone. I can't do this. I can't do this. And he's like, this is your last chance, boy.
Yeah.
Kill the Doctor.
Oh,
Kill the Doctor.
gosh.
That's the end.
This is your last chance. I shall not say that again. Kill the Doctor!
And you can see the Guardian's grip is tightening on Turlo. And
Well, he's getting pissed. He's getting impatient now.
Yeah.
He's like, this is your last chance.
So yeah, that is Terminus. What are you giving that one out of 10?
I gave Mordred an 8, didn't I? I give Terminus a 6.5.
I'm giving that one an 8.5.
Wow, I like that.
I really like that story.
Oh, Part 1 was really good, though. 7. That's my decision.
Perfect. And what's after this? What's the name of the next episode?
Enlightenment.
Okay.
Which is the last part of the Black Guardian trilogy.
It won't be the same about Nyssa.
I know, I don't know what to expect now. 2 companions that don't really like each other. Yeah.
So we'll dive into Enlightenment and we'll complete the Black Guardian trilogy because, as well, something from now that is interesting is they released some new pins, didn't they?
Yes,
After
they did.
we did our last episode.
That's very true.
And they have renamed the Black Guardian to the Guardian of Chaos.
Yeah.
Whether that's significant, we're yet to see, but
We'll have to wait and see.
This feels timely. So, okay, cool. Well, thank you for watching that with me, Ethan, for talking about that.
That was really fun.
And I look forward to the next part.